Good morning, Unity. So glad you're here with us today. We're going to continue with some great music. Mark Sauce is going to come up and sing for us.
Today, that's Marconi sauce. What would I do if I knew that I could not fail? If I believed with the wind always fill up my sail, how far could I go? What would I achieve? Trusting the hero in me. If I were brave, I'd walk the razor's edge, where fools and dreamers dare to tread. I'd never lose faith, even when losing my way. What step would I take today if I were brave? What would I do today if I were brave? What would I do today if I were brave? What would I do today if I were brave? What would I do today if I were brave? What if we're all meant to do what we secretly dream? What would you do if you knew you could have anything? Like the mighty oak sleeps in the heart of the sea, there are miracles in you and me. If I were brave, I'd walk the razor's edge, where fools and dreamers dare to tread. I'd never lose faith, even when losing my way. What step would I take today if I were brave? What would I do today if I were brave? What would I do today if I were brave? What would I do today if I were brave? What would I do today if I were brave? If I refuse to listen to the voice of fear, with the voice of courage whisper in my ear, if I were brave, I'd walk the razor's edge, where dreamers dare to never tread. I'd never lose faith, even when losing my way. I take today if I were brave? What would I do today if I were brave? What would I do today if I were brave? What would I do today if I were brave? What would I do today if I were brave?
Good morning, Unity. And Mark Sauce, you are brave. You look like you stepped into a time machine. I was getting ready to scream and go, ah! It is January outside, but it is a Sunday before Halloween in here, and we're having fun. So welcome to Unity Spiritual Center of North Idaho, where our mission is to inspire people to live, love, and uplift lives. Let us pray. Holy Spirit, we gather here today to open our hearts and minds to the awareness of your divine presence. We know there is but one presence and one power in the universe, God the Good. We send a blessing to all faiths as they too seek a deeper understanding of your presence, your love, your joy, and your compassion. We recognize that we are spirit in expression, and we too share this divine understanding. We welcome all who are here today, both in person and participating on live stream, and we are very blessed. Amen. And now I'll read the daily word for today. And it's perfect for the snow. Don't you love how the snow makes everything kind of quiet and peaceful? So the daily word for today is listen. In the quiet of my heart, I listen for the voice of spirit. During the course of a busy day, I may hear all kinds of things, conversations, music, sounds from nature, traffic noise, and even my constant self-talk. Sometimes all that I'm hearing may numb me to the more intentional act of listening. As I listen, I become aware of the voice of spirit. It's comforting. Guiding presence feels like a homecoming. As I settle into a tranquil environment and begin to relax my body and my mind, I create a welcoming space for listening to the assuring voice of spirit, discernible as my inner knowing. I breathe deeply and I rest in this space. I go about my day listening attentively for the voice of spirit expressing through all the people in my life. Blessed, rather, are those who hear the word of God and obey it. Luke 11:28. Please stand as we join together in song.
Oh, gosh. We're going to sing together, I've Got a River of Life. I bet some of you might know this song.
I've got a river of life flowing out of me.
At Unity, we're an affirming ministry that honors the many names of God, the many faces of God, and the many paths to God. We bless all people of every race, color, and creed without exception. We are also a ministry of prayer, and through Silent Unity Prayer Ministry, there is someone praying for us 24/7, every day. If you would like to submit a prayer request, there are forms in the seatbacks in front of you. You can place the completed forms within the offering containers as you leave or in a prayer vessel in the hall. We will pray with you for 30 days and then send on the request to Silent Unity, who will pray with you for another 30 days. And I'm Tammy Savage, your celebration assistant. And our featured soloist today is Mark Sauce. Yay! We've got Julie and Laura as song leaders. Then we've got Leanne on piano. We've got Gary Butner on guitar, Jim Turner on bass, Dagan Williamson on the drums. And then everybody in the back. So we've got Mark doing double duty. I don't know how he's doing both. And we've got Jim and Brian back there too. Thanks, guys. We appreciate it. We welcome those who are here for the first time or watching us online for the first time, or if you found us on Facebook. We believe you found us by divine appointment. Please let us know you are here or watching by filling out the guest form or sending us an email to unity@unitycenter.org. As is always the case, we have some wonderful opportunities at Unity. I'll share the highlights, and you can find more details on our website. For the month of November, the Wayne Camino Ministry will hike the Pin and Cave Loop Trail. This Canfield mountain hike follows a 3.8-mile moderately trafficked loop. Although it is designed for motorized trail bikes and mountain biking, it is open to hikers as well. The trailhead is at the east end of Nelton Gulch Road. It should be a fun hike, weather permitting. Let Reverend Steve know if you're planning to go or just show up. And I've gone on 2 of these hikes, and they're a lot of fun. So come on out and join Steve and Yankee, my dog, and me. Once again, our Unity Spiritual Center will be providing meals to guest families at Family Promise. Our week of service begins Sunday, November 15th, and ends Saturday, November 21st. To sponsor a meal, click on the meal train link on the community message board page of our website. Then sign up for the day that you wish to cover. Family Promise has been really easy this year. We don't need overnight volunteers. We just need people to bring meals, or if you'd rather, just a gift certificate for a meal is just as good. The families are like all of us and trying to stay apart, so we can't enjoy meals with the families, but that doesn't mean that they still don't have to eat. So please contribute. It's a really wonderful opportunity for our church to give of itself. It is time to take your elimination of single-use plastics to the next level by purchasing compostable storage bags. These resealable, bio-friendly products compost quickly in as little as 90 days. So pick up some today, and if you pick up the flyer that's out in our lobby, it has a website that you can go to order. And they're very good. I've actually ordered some. They're really nice. Reverend Steve's Meditations for Living will help you transform how you view life's challenges, such as the November election. You have a meditation on the November election? Good for you. I am so proud of you. I'm going to have to see that and experience that. That's good. Creating prosperity, healing cancer, cultivating healthy relationships. You can view them all on our website or YouTube channel. We increase the power of prayer when we do it together. That is the purpose of our Silent Unity Healing Service. It is offered online each and every Wednesday at 12 p.m. This is a 20-minute program that boosts our combined prayer energy and creates a safe place to request support. To join this online gathering, click Silent Unity Healing Service in the website header. As an alternative, you can join by voice only over the phone. If you prefer this approach, please see Reverend Steve for assistance. To find out more about what's happening here, subscribe to our newsletter, or you can go to our website, unitycenter.org. And now let us prepare for meditation.
And now I invite you, if you would, just to close your eyes and just bring your full attention and your full energy to this moment as we begin our journey inward into the experience of and the recognition that the presence of God is within us. Jesus said, "Lo, the Spirit of God is within you." And so as we focus away from the outer world and into the inner reality of our being, into our thoughts and feelings, into that creative place where we bring forth into our life that which we seek to create, that which God has put us on this planet for, as we recognize that we each have a central purpose in our life, a purpose that we have agreed to or have been given when we came into this world. And so as we take a moment today, we listen and know that Spirit is speaking to us in a myriad of ways. Some may hear an audible voice within. Others may just simply have a feeling, an intuition, an awareness. Others may be guided by the world around them in the sense that it leads them to where they need to go. But regardless of how we experience the presence of God within us, we all seek wisdom and guidance, encouragement and support, and we seek to be the living presence of God in this world. We all seek to be the hands and feet of this one presence and one power that is God the good, omnipotence. And so as we seek to live our life, we make a commitment to live life from the heart, to live our life in love, that we truly are living love. And when we live love fully and completely and enthusiastically, we lift lives. Not only our own life, but we lift the lives of others. We inspire others to reach within and bring that energy forth into their lives. We change the world by healing, by inspiring, by showing the way, and by knowing this deep and abiding truth that we are the presence of God, that we are God in expression, that we are divine beings, here for a divine purpose, that we are here to live the life and emulate the teachings of Jesus, the Christ, our elder brother, our way shower, he who has demonstrated these incredible principles in his life. And so we take this divine presence, this divine idea, this divine energy, this divine love, this divine reality, and we just allow this energy to move and flow and lift us, inspire us. And as it does so, we send it forth into the world, into the lives of all those whom we know, all those who are seeking something more in their life, all those who need
His sense of compassion and kindness. We touch them with our thoughts and feelings and energy, and we allow that Spirit to flow as we rest for just a moment in the silence. In the silence.
As we return to this room, feel a chair underneath of you and the floor supporting your feet. Let's turn to our heart and join me in singing.
That felt good. And I got to say that, Mark, that's a really good look for you. I don't know. I hate to say it, but it's almost an improvement. You look so young and vibrant and a lot.
Keep wearing this thing. I'm going to have to get some better deodorant.
Okay. I love it. Great. Well, the Sermon on the Mount, in the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus went through a series of statements. And the statements were prefaced with, "You have heard it was said." So he went, "You have heard it was said, you've heard it was said," and he went through a whole kind of a laundry list of different things. And one of the admonitions that he was going through, and all of them actually, was an effort to reframe the scriptures. Now, what he was doing was taking the teachings, the Jewish teachings that he had been raised on and that he was taught about, and he was reframing them in a different way for people. I mean, it was quite a revolution, quite a change of how you might view that. And one of those was, one admonition was the law of love. And he said, "You have heard it was said, you shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I say to you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, so that you may be sons of your Father who is in heaven. For he makes the sun rise on the evil and on the good, and sends rain on the just and on the unjust. For if you love those who love you, what reward have you? Do not even the tax collectors do the same? And if you salute only your brethren, what more are you doing than the others? Do not even the Gentiles do the same?" Now you can imagine how that reframing was received in the brutal world in which they lived. It was a pretty unforgiving reality, being in a repressed sort of dynamic, and being a country that was occupied and the people that were occupied and all the issues and all the enemies that were around them. And all of a sudden here's Jesus telling them to love your enemies as well as you love those in your life, in your neighbors, in your friends, to love them. And that's a whole different kind of reality. I mean, it's even a difficult reality for us in our modern culture. C.S. Lewis, actually Brené Brown, in her book, Rising Strong, which is what we're working with, and this is the fourth Sunday in that series, she put a quote of C.S. Lewis's in the book. It's actually in the I think it's the end of the 8th chapter, and he says, "To love at all is to be vulnerable. Love anything, and your heart will certainly be wrung and possibly broken. If you want to make sure of keeping it intact, you must give it to no one, not even an animal. Wrap it carefully around with hobbies and little luxuries. Avoid all entanglements. Lock it up safe in the casket or coffin of your selfishness. But in that casket, safe, dark, motionless, airless, it will change. It will not be broken. It will become unbreakable, impenetrable, irredeemable. To love is to be vulnerable. To love is to be vulnerable. And to live love, which we promote, we talk about in our mission, we are about the business of living love and uplifting lives. To live love means to live it in our daily life. It means, as the saying goes, to walk around literally with our heart outside of our body in our daily life as we go about our business. And that's a scary thing to do, and for some. It takes a lot of courage to be willing to and committed to doing that sort of thing. So the question is, how do we love not only the angels in our life, but also the sewer rats? The people we don't like, and those who hurt us and are mean to us and hard on us. Brené tells a story in the book about being called by a woman who was kind of abrupt and in her tone and style. She was called by this woman who was asking her to come speak at an event, and she wanted her to come pro bono. It was a charitable event. And so she asked her if she would come pro bono to speak at this event, and Renee said she does about 30% of her engagements are pro bono because she likes to contribute to certain places and certain causes that she supports. And so, but she just had this feeling she didn't want to go. So she paused. And in the midst of that little pause, the woman said, "We were with you before you were famous." And she went, "Oh." So she said, "Okay, I'll come." So she agreed to come. The woman seemed to know exactly what to do. So then the woman says, "Okay, you're going to have to room with somebody, one of our other speakers, because all the speakers room with each other. Well, again, she was like, oh, it kind of took her back. Oh, what do I? And she didn't want to do that. And she's just about to say something, and the woman said, you don't want us to treat you special, do you? She thought, so her buttons, right? She has these certain things. She just knew exactly what to say. And she said, well, no, that's fine. I can do that. And she thought, well, I can handle that. So she shows up at the event, and she goes up to her room, and she's standing outside the door, and she says a prayer, like, okay, I hope this roommate is somebody that I can get along with, that I'm compatible with. And so she knocks on the door, and the woman says, come in. So she opens the door, and here's this woman lying on a couch with a great big cinnamon roll. She's eating this big cinnamon roll, and she's a little overweight, and of course all of Brené's judgments start jumping in, all of her perceptions start jumping in, and so this woman's eating this cinnamon roll, and they have a little exchange about that, and finally she eats the last piece of the cinnamon roll, and then she licks off her fingers, and then she gets up, and then she wipes her hands on the couch to wipe the rest of the sticky off of the couch. And she turns and says, it's not our couch. And then she goes and gets a paper cup and puts a little water on the bottom, and she steps out on the balcony and lights up a cigarette. And Brené yells out to the balcony, you can't smoke in the room. It's a non-smoking room. And the woman says, they didn't say anything about the balcony. And Brené says, well, but the smoke is coming into the room. She says, oh, just spray some spray around the room and it'll smell just fine, So she's like in this, this is this nightmare, right? Well, she deals with it, and the next morning she gets up and she gives her presentation, which she does fine, and immediately after the presentation she heads to the airport, but she's in full judgmental mode, seeing all of the depravity of all the human beings that are in the airport and around her, and just going through this whole litany of the world, the whole thing. The world's people are bad, they're terrible, they don't pay any attention, they don't do the best they can, all that stuff. And she gets home and comes into the house, and she snaps at her husband, and she's sitting there and she's thinking, I want a chicken fried steak with gravy on it. I want some comfort food, which I guess that's Texas comfort food. I want some chicken fried steak and some gravy, but she doesn't want to go out to get it. Then she says, or I could go shopping and buy a sweater or something. She's trying to make herself feel better, right? Isn't that kind of our normal, a lot of times of our normal reaction, We head for whatever it is that makes us feel more comfortable. And finally she gives up all that stuff and she just goes to bed. Well, she had the foresight of scheduling an appointment with her therapist on the plane on the way back. So the next day she goes down to her therapist, and she goes in and sits down with her therapist, who she's been seeing for a good period of time, and she just kind of unloads on her therapist. And she tells her the story and expresses all of her judgments and her frustration and her anger and how bad this woman is and why did this happen, the whole thing. Finally, she kind of ends it. She says, look, said, this wholehearted living spiritual awakening thing is great. I'm fine with it. In fact, I like it, except for the sewer rats and scofflaws. These people are crap. She likes that word for some reason. She uses it quite a bit in her writings. So the therapist just sort of looked at her, and she says, in a kind of a quiet, clear voice, calm voice, she says, what if these people were doing the best they can in the moment? What if these people, these sewer rats and scofflaws, were doing the best they can in the moment? Well, that was the opposite of her basic assumption in that moment, and she was like, Brené was like, well, no, I'm not going to, that makes no sense. People can do better than that. People can do better than wipe their fingers on a couch and, go out and smoke and all the stuff that going on. And she didn't finish her session feeling very fulfilled or agreed with or have any support. So she walked out there, but she got to thinking about it. She started kind of mulling it in her head, and she thought, well, I wonder what other people think. Well, here, Brené's a researcher. She's done all these research projects and all these research things that she's done. So she had a whole list of people, and so she put together a control group, and she started calling people in her control group and asking them the question. She said, do you think people are doing the best they can in any given moment? That was the question. And people responded differently. Most people, she said, that responded in agreement with that statement generally had some sort of condition around it. But other people simply said no. They didn't think so. So then she called one of her really good friends and threw the question out at her, and this person thought a lot like Brené, and so she completely reacted, no, they don't. They need to do better. The whole kind of litany of that sort of dynamic. So she was struggling with it. She was rumbling with it, as she talks about in her book. She was rumbling with this whole issue, this whole question. Finally she went home to her husband, and she asked her husband specifically that question. How do you feel about the idea that people are doing the best they can at any given moment? And he looked at her, and he's a pediatrician, so he works with families and kids. He said, I don't know. He said, I really don't. All I know is that my life is better when I assume that people are doing their best. It keeps me out of judgment and lets me focus on what is and not what should or could be. My life is better when I step into that place, that mindset. And that was her shift. That was the moment. That was the reality. So she went back to her therapist, and she again talked to her therapist on the next visit. And her therapist said, what did you learn? She said, well, I explained that very early on in my work I had discovered that the most compassionate people I interviewed also have the most well-defined and well-respected boundaries. It surprised me at the time, but now I get it. They assume that other people are doing the best they can, but they also ask for what they need, and they don't put up with a lot of crap. Okay. So she found that sweet spot in terms of her dynamic and her reality and her place. And Brené's basic assumption was she assumed people were not doing their best, that they could always, in every case, do better, and that she could judge them. And it was a revelation to think that maybe her assumption was not correct, that maybe she could look at the world differently. And that's what happens when somebody throws something out, like Jesus threw that out to the crowd, about love your enemy, and all of a sudden she gets thrown out, okay, this is the way you do it. The way you do it is make some assumptions that people are doing their best. That's how you love those who are being dysfunctional in your presence. You're assuming that they're doing their best. You're assuming that there is something going on that's not you can't see in the moment, or you can't know about in the moment. Some history or story in their background, or some issue or something that they're dealing with. At any given moment, any one of us could be going through hell because of a situation in our life or our experience that we're struggling with, and they're working with, that we're rumbling with, that we're dealing with, or some hurt that's showing up in our life, or experience, or abuse, or whatever it is. We can't know what's driving somebody's dynamic and somebody's energy. All we can do is have a basic assumption that allows us to step into that moment and that experience. Emotionally healthy people are compassionate and empathetic. And they show it. Emotionally healthy people are compassionate and empathetic. They may not agree with the behavior that's going on around them. They may not see that as being appropriate, but they love the person anyway. They see beyond that. They see that there's a spiritual being behind this behavior that's showing up, that's disrupting the situation or the moment, or that is happening in their presence. And it's not a reflection of them. That perhaps it's a call for help. It's wanting to be noticed. It's crying out or coping with a situation in the moment, or whatever it might be. We never know what someone has gone through, what loss, what fear. I was reading Timothy Egan's book called The Worst Hard Times. I don't know if any of you have read it or not, but it's about the Dust Bowl in the 30s. And it takes place in the panhandle of Oklahoma, you know, the little panhandle that goes across above Texas. And that's called no man's land. And though the land there was being given away as 160 acres homesteading for people, they could just go out and grab 160 acres homestead. So a lot of folks came out there because they weren't doing well where they're at, and they sort of showed up there, and they had a really strong work ethic, and they worked. And most of the land was prairie grass, and so they started plowing it under and planting wheat. And they were able to get some really good crops of wheat out of this, and they're actually making a living off of this particular property, and the price of wheat was good. But gradually during the 20s, the price of wheat began to drop. And so as the price of wheat dropped, they needed to grow more in order to sustain themselves, and so they had to plow more land. And so they kept plowing more land and growing more wheat and plowing more land and growing more wheat. And the way in which they plowed, the dirt was dust. Was turned into dust. And all of a sudden, when the dust storm started, when the wind started coming in, there was nothing to protect the land. Previously there had been prairie grass there, and it didn't blow up, but now it was blowing up into the air, and it was horrible. And these people, a lot of these folks were living in sod homes, and their windows weren't very sealed. Dust would come in the home. Talk about being masked today. I mean, this was like big time. It just gives you a lot of empathy about what they were going through. And I just felt like, here we are. We live right now in probably one of the most peaceful, prosperous times in the history of our planet. The history of humankind, we live in the most peaceful and prosperous time in the history of our planet. We do. You and I, all of us. And yet we still have all these things that are going on around us that we somehow think are bad. And yet when you look back into history and see some of the things that people had to go through, it's absolutely incredible. So it's how they got through that, and that lasted for years. It wasn't just like a 6-month event. It was like 6 or 7 years of Dust Bowl, which is why so many of them left that area. I would have been gone the first week, I think, after reading the story. Of course, you don't know when you're in it. You think it's going to stop, right? You think it's going to be over. What if I told you had to wear masks for 3 years? It's like, you like to think that there's going to be a point at which it'll change, and of course there is, but we don't know. All we can do is just show up and be present and know that we are all doing the best that we can do. And to love each other, whether we're being dysfunctional about it or not. If somebody's difficult and walking around and blowing spittle all over the place, get out of the way. Something's going on that you don't know about. It's okay. They're not bad people. They're just doing the best that they think they know how to do in a given moment. We don't judge them. We play our part and do the job that we have. Brené talks about living big, how to live big, how to be the loving witness of all this. She says, living big is saying, yes, I'm going to be generous in my assumptions and intentions while standing solidly in my integrity and being very clear about what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. That's how we live love. We stand strong in our assumptions and integrity about knowing that people are doing the best they can in a given moment. And if we could walk in their shoes, we may very well find ourselves doing the same thing or being in the same place. And so it helps us to just bring that sense of compassion and caring and kindness forward into our life. And we can be compassionate and empathetic with good, clear boundaries. We don't have to own their stuff, but we can create a sense of boundaries. Back in 40 years ago when this church started, I was chairman of the steering committee, and it was our first year, and we were down at Fort Sherman Chapel. And we had a class, an evening class, and there was about, 15, 20 of us at the class. And I can't even remember who was teaching the class, but here's what I remember in the class is that about halfway through the class, all of a sudden the back doors of the church flew open, and this woman came running in, And she was crying and yelling and upset and saying all these crazy things. I don't remember what she said exactly. And I was like stunned, I was just like stunned, you know. And of course, my judgment, who is this crazy person? Get her out of here. I don't like that, you know, how that whole kind of thing, you know, there. And I'm sitting there, and I wanted to do something, but, you know, I didn't know what to do. Well, this individual that was there, his name is Bill. He was from Holland, from the Netherlands. He had white hair. I don't know if probably none of you were around at that time, but he had white hair. He's probably in his 50s. Had a Dutch accent, you know. And he gets up, and he walks. This woman's there, you know, walks over to her, and he stands in front of her, and he holds his arms out. Didn't say a word. He just held his arms out. And she stepped forward, and he wrapped in his arms, and he just held her. He just held her. And she cried, and he held her probably 5 minutes or so. It seemed like a long time. He just held her, and she settled down, and she relaxed. And then he sat down with her. And it was one of the most incredible moments that I had experienced of somebody showing up with love. No judgment, just here I am, being present. And that stuck with me. I used to think, at that moment I thought, God, I wish I could do that. But I knew I couldn't in that moment. I wasn't there yet. You know, I don't know if I'm there now. It hasn't happened, so I don't know. I would like to think that I could in this moment move past that. You know, I mean, I have in some other ways, but it was just amazing. And that's how we show up in love. That's how we stop judging others and just give people that sense that, you know, you're doing the best you can. And if somebody is destructive, certainly we step in and stop that. I mean, you don't let people commit suicide or throw rocks in windows. You don't do that. I mean, that's not what we're talking about, you know. But we step in and stop that, but we don't judge them. We know there's something going on that's causing that behavior that needs to be brought to the surface, that needs to be addressed, that needs to be talked about. We don't know what their history, their background, their experience. You know, you see some of these folks that end up in jail, and you hear some of the most horrible stories of how they may have been raised and the things that they've been through, and you start to understand that, you know, there's a reason that these things happen. And so that's how Jesus said, judge that you not be judged, for with the judgment you pronounce, you will be judged, and the measure you give will be the measure you get. And what do you want to give? I want to give compassion. I want to give love. I want to give those things. I want to give kindness to others. And so sometimes I get a button pushed and I immediately react, but I want to be able to come back to my center. I want to be able to come back to that place. I want to be in that experience when I show up with other people. And that's how we live love. And that's how we uplift lives. Every day, every encounter, every experience, every moment. They may not even know that we're not judging them. We may just be present, observing what's going on, but we're sending them peace and love and energy. That's how we love those who persecute us. By knowing this truth. By knowing that this is the law of love. We have an affirmation card in each of your chairs. There's a little green card. And it's actually green because that represents the fourth chakra. And the fourth chakra is the heart, right here. And that's where compassion comes from. And so I invite you to take this card and to take it with you, and let's read this affirmation, because I think it's something that we can anchor in our consciousness. So I choose courage, compassion, forgiveness. Let's read the whole thing all the way through together. I choose courage, compassion, and forgiveness. I rise strong with curiosity and connection, choosing courage, compassion, and forgiveness. Living love and uplifting lives. God bless.
We welcome Mark Sauce back up to the platform. Rock star Mark Sauce.
What are we doing?
It's a good color on you, by the way. Yeah. Okay, either.
Feels strange to have hair. If I could reach the stars, I'd pull one down for you, shining on my heart, so you could see the truth, that this love I have inside is everything that it seems. But for now I find it's only in my dreams that I can change the world. I would be the sunlight in your universe. You would think my love was really something good, baby, if I could change the world. If I could be king, even for a day, I'd take you as my queen. I'd have it no other way, and our love would rule in this kingdom we made. Till then I'll be a fool, wishing for the day that I can change the world. I would be the sunlight in your universe. You would think my love was really something good, baby, if I could change the world. Baby, if I could change the world. If I could change the world, I would be the sunlight in your universe. You would think my love was really something good, baby, if I could change the world, baby, if I could change the world, baby, if I could change the world.
I gotta get my thing out of here. There. I like your outfit too, right? That's good. Yeah. Okay. Well, now's our time of giving, and I'm talking to both you here and also those that are watching online. I do want to mention that this is the fourth week of our fall program, Rising Strong, and also the fourth week in our intentional giving effort to create an intention for next year in terms of giving and our budget and a goal for each one of you. And so I've given you a list of those who have signed up with intentional giving. We have 21. We're a little ways away from where we need to be, and we're halfway there. So I think our Unity folks tend to be a little last minute. In putting up our groups together, Tammy on the Sunday before the group started, she had nobody signed up, and the next day she had 9 people before the group started. So that just kind of shows you sometimes how that works. So if you're online and you're willing and interested in making an intentional commitment for next year, you can go on our website and go on there's a link you can click onto, and you can just make that commitment. It's not a pledge, it's a goal for next year, but it helps us with our budgeting. And those here, there are intentional giving cards on the way out the door. If you're willing to take one and fill it out and drop it off, put it in the offering jugs, whatever you want to do, that would be great. It would be very helpful, and it will make a huge difference for this ministry going into next year. So now let's take our gifts for today in our hands and just bless them. And if you've already given, if you give in other ways, through deduction or whatever, just know that there is a divine presence within you. And as you give to the source of spiritual work, a spiritual source, then you are opening that door in your own life for the blessings of Spirit. Given it will be given to you, heaped up, pressed down, shaken together, and running over. And so we bless our gifts by affirming that my offering is my acceptance of God as the source of my supply and symbolizes my faith in the abundant flow of this supply through me. Together? My offering is my acceptance of God as the source of my supply and symbolizes my faith in the abundant flow of this supply through me. And so it is. And our offering vessels are in the back as you leave.
Well, let's sing together. God is my source, because that is the truth.
Let us pray. Father, Mother God, we acknowledge this offering as the very substance of your being, created for our use before the world was formed. We know it has been shaped and formed in our thoughts and in our hearts, and now it comes into manifestation through our thoughts and our words, and enters this, your ministry, with your blessing upon it. According to your perfect law, it returns to each giver heaped up, pressed down, shaken together, and running over. For our increased understanding of this law, we do give thanks. Now let's all stand as we join together and sing our prayer for loving kindness. So we have basically hand motions. So it's I am filled with loving kindness, you are filled with loving kindness, and we are filled with loving kindness.
May you be
as we go forth in peace. Our hearts remain open. We are awakened to the light of our true nature, and we are healed. And we are a healing source for all beings. And so it is. Amen.